All right, so to start this episode, I would like to do a show and tell, I guess. I'm sharing with the
Ooh.
class. I heard from Sicko guest, Sicko homie, Sicko scientist John Hazier shared the following anecdote about his father, which I will now read verbatim.
Dad lore. Dad lore.
He introduced it with the following. So I have a wild Sicko story about my dad. Number one. 34 years ago, my dad lost his wedding ring doing some home repair work. Number two, last week when refinishing a crawl space access, he finds the ring.
What?
Yes, he pockets it and determines that he'll reveal the recovery to my mom during an extra special occasion as a fun surprise.
No, pause. I'm going to pause you right there. I'm going to take some wild guesses. Obviously, these are wrong because the funny story, and even more so, I know the story. I'm pretending like I don't know what's going to happen. But if I was this guy, I don't know. Anniversary, maybe a nice dinner.
How long would you sit on it and think about it before acting, Tom?
I would think for maybe like a week.
Okay, number three. A couple days ago, my parents are watching the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and they are explaining the lore of the rings in the universe. Number four. He determines this is his moment. And he busts out the long lost ring. So this is the Titanic ring. For all purposes, like this is how important it is.
34 years. 34 years missing. And Sonic.
One thing, if I found something like that, I would not be able to. I'd be like, look at this. Look, I fucking found it. I found it. This also feels like a really perfect example of dad logic, by which I mean he was watching a film, and then the movie said the name of one of his key items in his inventory. And he was like, oh, yeah, this matches. You know what? I have something the same shape.
A round hole? Oh, shit, I have a round peg. I also love that, like... He has to explain rings. It's just like, oh, honey, I have some news for you. But first, you got to understand that this hedgehog character, he does not have HP like a normal character would. Not even state-based HP like Mario, where it's indicated by his size or his garb rather than numerically or with a bar. Instead, any number of rings, from one to what have you, acts as a sort of one-off armor or shield. Now, other video game protagonists eventually will run out of health and force a game over. But you could conceivably be hit an infinite number of times as this Sonic fellow if you were to reclaim at least one ring every time you were hit prior to the next hit. Anyway, knowing that and how important these rings are, look what I fucking found.
Thank you for sharing this with us. Like, this is this part of the extended Sicko-verse now?
Yeah, I mean, anything to do with Sonic is just got some stink on it just from the jump. Like, Sonic is never, like, normal. Sonic's never fully above board.
Yeah, but it's intersecting the dad plane.
You never thought it would. This is like a if your dad was like, now these Gundams, this is a Gundam wing, but these Gundams don't have wings. But you are the wind beneath my wings when you marry me.
That kicks ass. Well, I guess the amazing thing about this is, like, it's also, like, not a new release, right? Sonic was pre-COVID, like, the whole mouth thing. 4 years ago? Like, a weird time.
Do you think he sought it out because it was a ring-based movie?
There was no intent in the message there. It seemed like a fun coincidence. If there was intent, that's even better.
Oh my god. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Anime Sickos. It's the podcast for geniuses and the only podcast where we take a look at the four pillars of modern misery, anime gaming, posting, and jobs. I'm Tom, an anime sicko.
I am Joe, an anime sicko.
So we, a while back, perfected games criticism. We found out the perfect way to make games criticism the supreme form of itself.
Yeah, I think our findings were Breath of the Wild kind of sucks because you don't build a deck and you don't build a little town.
Yeah, I say perfect. Like, clearly it was the dumbest system of all time because, like, that's so wrong. Like, Breath of the Wild's great. So we chunked it big time. So I think it's due time for us to take a second swing at, like, really creating the ultimate form of something because I feel like the second time's going to be the charm for sure. We chunked it once, but what are the chances we'll do it twice? Like 0, right?
This is still going to be gaming related, right? It's the only thing I feel confident about.
Yes, of course. What we're going to do, Joe, is, you know, we're both sickos who've played a lot of JRPGs. We're going to create...
We're fucked up. We got fucked up brains, Tom.
Yeah, we're going to create the perfect JRPG. Really, like, find all of the ingredients that create the ultimate JRPG experience. Now, JRPGs, as you know, are the video games that have the courage to ask, what if anime was jobs?
What if instead of a cool attack, you had to make a report no one trained you on?
Yeah, what if you saw a picture on the box of a bunch of, like, incredible adventurers fighting a dragon, and then the game was a 100% spreadsheet-based interactive experience?
Look, there are words on the back of every Disgaea box that, in theory, make it not sound like it's just like a huge spreadsheet game.
I mean, it's enterprise software that, like, has anime titties on it for, like, reasons that no one can explain.
Yes, it's Microsoft Access, and then every cell is a dungeon which you can level up.
And it rules, especially as to be sort of later in one's life, not a child anymore, to be living with a significant other and be a JRPG playing person. Because the thing about JRPGs is that they're all like 100 hours minimum, and all of them are games that any other person living in your house can't fucking stand to look at.
And here, I think we went over this in the Yakuza 6 episode, but you're gonna hear the same shit for 80 hours. Take that. I'm not like other girls, etc., etc. And your beloved partner will go insane. To you, yeah. And the best part about this is you're having a great time.
Yeah, for sure. They look up, see the TV, and are like, "You're seriously." It's that menu again, huh? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to be in this menu for another 20 hours. And I'm loving it. It's like, are you getting anything new on the menu? And I'm like, oh, very slowly. Mostly the same.
How much time did you put into the business game in Yakuza 7?
I didn't keep track because it would make me feel sad to see the number. I reached the end. I became the ultimate business in Yokohama, making billions of yen every week. And that shit takes an extremely long time, and in order to do that, you have to do the same shit endlessly and just watch your
menus.
Incremental...
You just have to look at menus.
Incremental gains. Yeah, so okay. We know about JRPGs. They're the best games that you can play. So let's actually get specific here. Let's dig deep and come up with the things that you gotta have to create the perfect JRPG. The one that you take the best, the greatest hits from the entire history of the genre, and if you put them all together in one game, you got the supreme one. First off, you gotta have this. Non-negotiable. You're gonna need to have stats, obviously, but you're gonna need at least 10 stats, but only 6 of them do anything.
7 if it's luck. And luck's description, it's got to be unclear. It has to be like, changes a bunch of stuff a little bit.
Yeah, luck has to be like if you go on the wiki and look up like what is luck. like, you see math. Like, you see fucking calculus. And you're just like, oh, no.
You should also see, in the discussion part of the wiki, a bunch of fighting.
Yes. A lot of people being like, what does vigor do? And you'd think, the game being out for like 25 years at this point, that like people would know. And everyone's just like, I got vigor to 200 and then I got vigor to 250 and I didn't notice any differences. And someone's like, well, I think that it has to do with how much health you regain from potion items. Higher vigor means more healing per item. It's like, well, I think that the healing potions just give you a range of healing that's possible, and you just happen to see, you need to see that. You can't have it be known.
The other thing that is crucial is that one of the stats has to be fucking bugged and just not do what it is supposed to do. In fact, it should do the opposite of what it says.
Yeah, for sure.
One example that really left psychic damage on me is playing Final Fantasy VI growing up, and like there's evasion and then there's magic evasion. Like, because dodging a dagger is different than fire.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, regular evasion didn't do shit. It didn't work. And meanwhile, magic evasion did both of them.
And magic evasion, to be clear, is like way harder to come by than normal evasion. Like a guy swinging at you with his dang arm. You can get your evasion such that you're like nominally dodging that 25% of the time. Whereas if you've got like really good magic evasion, you're avoiding a spell like 8% of the time.
And I have learned recently that in like subsequent re-releases of Final Fantasy VI, and even like there are fan patches, they fix this.
That's not allowed. That is. This is like when they took Shakespeare plays and like took the tragedies and made them happy endings because they didn't think that it was moral. This is a crime against art. The stats have to be bugged. The stats have to confuse and lie to you.
What's going to be clear as we go through these, we want a JRPG gaming experience to just really leave you feeling unsafe and confused. You should never feel safe.
And to that point, the next thing that a perfect JRPG needs to have is just an attitude of total contempt for the player with regard to who is going to be in your party at any given time. The game should be spitting in your face about this constantly.
Yeah, people should be coming and going all the time. Anytime you buy equipment for a party member, you should do it with the dark knowledge that they might leave soon, and you just fucking blew that gold.
If you ever do any grinding because you're like, I need this character to learn these spells, or I need them to reach a certain level so that they'll learn a specific ability, and then that'll really help me in the future. There needs to be that nagging thought in the back of your mind that's like, this is probably a waste of time. I'm probably going to get them to where I need, and then I'm going to go to the next town, and they're going to be like, I decided I'm going to make cheese as my job forever now. Adventuring's for the birds. I'm a cheese guy now. Goodbye. And you're like, oh, are you at least going to give me back the items you had equipped on you when you left? And they're like, no, they're mine now. Bye-bye.
Can I geek out about a game that did this amazingly well, I guess, in the sense that it abuses you?
I want to know. Tell me.
There's a game called Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. It is a Super Nintendo game, and it's basically like a baby's first JRPG in a lot of ways. It's a fun game if you are like new to the concept of HP. And one of the ways it's for babies is the party size is 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
So when people leave, I'm done. It's really funny because the game also like fills you up really quick with a new person. So it'll be like, oh hey, that's fucking wild. Hey, can I come along right now? It's just like the most basic cause and effect shit.
Yes, and that show What a segue, because that brings me to the next thing that a perfect JRPG has to have. It can't just be constantly dangling these fun characters you like in your face, and right when you're like, all right, I'm gonna grab them, they yank them out from your reach and laugh at you. That's good. That's necessary, but that's not enough. You also have to give the player like so many more party members than they have slots in their party. And this is really important because it infuses the entire game with this sort of anxious feeling of FOMO, where you know for a fact that like you're missing most of the game because like you got 4 guys in your party, but there's like 8 guys that you're just leaving on the bench, and it's like, well, that's a lot of game that I'm not playing. How do I know I picked the right 4 guys? Maybe I picked the least fun guys. Maybe these guys are the least fun. You know what? I'll switch some of my guys out, and then I'll know which guy is the most fun. You switch your guys out. These new guys are weak as shit. They haven't got any fucking experience, because you cannot have one of those JRPGs where everyone gets experience regardless of whether they fight. No, the people who aren't fighting have to, every single second, be becoming shittier and shittier, so that not only do you have that FOMO, but you feel it getting stronger literally every second, because every
it feels
time
like a misallocated resource, right?
Yes.
It's like you should be leveling up, but you're just T-posing back at base. It sucks.
Like, any joy you would feel about the characters in your party getting strong, you immediately snap back to reality when you think about, like, oh shit, but I have a samurai that I'm not using, and that guy's probably really cool, and oh my god, he's under-leveled now.
So the game that would kill you with this is Chrono Cross. So it's got 45 characters.
Ooh!
Yeah, it's... So I got Chrono Cross and the strategy guide, like, whatever year it came out, and I'm going to tell you why I never played it. It's because the strategy guide shows all the characters, and there's too fucking many of them. There's, like, look, they all can't be winners, okay? You got, like, the main guys that look cool, but there was, like, a voodoo doll. You know when the Pokemon got, like, oh, this one's a coffee cup?
Yeah.
It was sort of that. I was feeling that a little bit.
Yeah. So you gotta have that. Joe, you're describing a perfect thing, because, again, you have that FOMO, but then you also have that sort of internal conflict of, like, well, how do I know? Maybe the character who's, like, super fucking lame, actually, like, as a character, you know, with regard to their personality and design, maybe that one is actually, like, the best. And I don't know. And obviously, of course, whenever a new character joins the group, it should go without saying, but I'm going to say it because I've seen some RPGs that don't do this, and it's really sickening. They have to start at level 1 so that you feel the joy of your party becoming insanely worse for an hour as you get them up to speed.
Yeah, it also forms a really nice emotional attachment with the character, because they join you, and now you have to watch them die in your arms again and again and again.
Yeah, they definitely show up as, like, a badass cutscene guy who's doing something really cool in, like, the plot, and they're like, I guess I'm really strong, I'll join you, and you're like, oh, dope. And you start a fight, and you're like, oh, they have a cool, unique ability, oh, that's incredible. And then they get one-shotted by, like, a bunny, and you bring them back to life using your limited Raise the Dead resources, and then the bunny one-shots them again. This is an incredible experience, because not only do you feel the incredible thrill of the game giving you a special, fun, new treat, and having that treat just make you so much worse at the game.
Yeah, it gives you something, and then it says, I can't believe you like this, you freak.
But also, it forces you to feel that FOMO by making you go like, oh my fucking god, I can't deal. And you just switch them back out with the good character again. And then you're just like, well, now every second that I'm not leveling up this baby guy, he's going to be even harder to level them up later. So I guess they're just in the trash now.
And that's fine.
Yeah, that's actually what you need. That's perfect and required.
And these bench characters that you don't use, of course you're going to have to use them for a really weird segment, and you're going to have to, like, here's a spoon, I guess. go get them.
Yeah, for real. That fun segue. That also, Joe, leads into a part that you gotta have. This is also super required. Is there's gotta be a part where, for plot reasons, you play as one guy only, not a party. One guy.
And I'm not talking about the beginning when it makes sense why there's one guy because you haven't made friends.
Yeah.
I mean, like 30 hours in.
Yeah, 30 hours in, like, all the strong guys are, like, gone, and, like, the juggler, who you never used, is, like, now the next chapter of the game is going to be the solo chapter for the juggler, and you're like, oh, no. I didn't buy any juggling ball weapons at any of the weapons stores because I was never going to use this asshole. And they're like, yeah, well, 5 hours of juggling, idiot.
He's important.
It's super crucial because in order to really appreciate how much fun you're having playing a JRPG, like, you never know how good you got it until something's gone. And that's why the game has just got to, for arbitrary reasons, just make it 1/4 as fun for, like, a huge portion.
That's objectively true, because when you go from clicking on menu buttons for 4 people down to 1 people, it's like you were playing Devil May Cry before. You had so much stimulation, and now the game is impossibly slow.
I mean, like, just the exhilaration of being like magic damage dealer, physical damage dealer, all-arounder, healer. I got them all ready to go. They're all popping off. Everyone is fucking behaving just as they should. Everyone is serving a purpose. I am at maximum efficiency. And then, now it's one guy. You have to like this because it's a part of the story. It's conflict, you see, and that's good. That makes a good story. So you have to like it. And that's why you got to put it in the game. You can't avoid this. If you take it out, you make the RPG imperfect. And that's the opposite of what we're talking about.
I'm a big fan of the Entry and Odyssey games. They are first-person dungeon crawlers, like done in the style of the Wizardry series. They were on the DS games. I really enjoyed them, but based on what we're saying, I'm learning they suck shit. And one of the reasons is, you know how JRPGs, like, the personalities are sort of built in, like, you don't get to choose these things. They're characters, and you just name them.
Yeah.
In these games, like, you just pick, like, oh, you're the archer, here's your sprite. There's, like, no fucking story behind them. They're just, like, little cutouts, and you just make your party. And the problem with that is that you have a sense of security from the jump. You know these people. They're not going anywhere.
No. Boo. That's, I don't like that. And also, I think another thing that this fails to do, and that all RPGs should do, is that it should make sure that it provides you with characters who are really unique and cool and, like, out of the ordinary, like, out of the box, which this game seems like it doesn't do. And the reason that it needs to do that is because those characters have to suck shit and be terrible to use, so it forces you to use Sword Man, Magic Woman, Axe Man, and Knife Man.
Yeah. Like, alternatively, you can use the Boob Mancer.
Like, maybe there's, like, a swashbuckling dancer who, like, uses dance magic. You're like, that's unusual. That character's stats are objectively the worst. Using them is simply the wrong decision. You gotta have that part. And if you don't, I don't know. It just feels like you're not trying.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're speaking about, you know, cool and unique characters, I think a thing that you gotta do, you really need to do this. This is one of the necessary hits, is you have to make sure that every character has a unique ability that is very confusing and doesn't make sense. It requires you to go to the wiki and read about a bunch of integers. And they vary wildly in efficacy, and there's no way for you to know that beforehand.
Yeah, like, some abilities will be like steal an item from an enemy. And then another ability will be please refer to the table.
Yeah, you and I both agree that perhaps the ultimate example of this is Gao from Final Fantasy VI, who is a feral child who you meet on the plains. He talks like a caveman.
On paper, everything about Gao is very cool. The execution of how you get his abilities is, I'll say it, it's anti-spiral. Like, it is aggressively anti-life.
So what happens? Here's the deal. I'm going to tell you about Gao. Gao's this little feral child who lives in the plains. So
he has a rat tail.
He has a rat tail. He like sort of walks around on all fours. He's badass, but you can't ever use him. Using him is the worst experience of your entire life, and you need to have that, because here's how it works. Gao's unique ability is to go into rages, where he becomes a monster. He literally embodies one of the enemy monsters from the game and gains all of their abilities and spells and attacks using them. All the super badass spells that the bad guys are using against you, Gao can use against the bad guys. The way that this works is there's a special field in the overworld called the Veldt.
Shit Island.
It's called the Veldt, a word that means nothing and that you could never remember. Also, where the Veldt is never really explained to you. It's just like a part of the grass. While you're in the Veldt, all of your random encounters could be any of the monsters you've seen up to that point in the game. When you see a monster that you want Gao to learn about, you got to send him on a vision quest, and he sort of goes away for a while.
Yeah, he goes ook, 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 and he does a dance with them, and then he's gone for like 8 fights.
And then, when he comes back, he has learned that monster. He knows all about them. So when you decide to go into a rage, a big fucking spreadsheet pops up, and there's an extra cell that has that monster's name in it. And by this point, you have fucking forgotten what spells that monster has. And especially, even if you didn't, you sure don't know what spells the monster has, because it definitely hasn't used half of them against you.
Because you've murdered all of these things on site before they've even got a chance to activate.
So you're like, oh, I know that this fucking guy has like a badass fire spell. I'll make Gao rage. And then he's like, I'm going to cast a piss spell that makes me piss and take double damage. And you're like, I didn't know that it had the piss spell. Fuck.
Everything you're saying is correct, not an exaggeration. You have left off a very stupid detail that I think is very crucial. Is when you said monsters, you mean like, we mean any enemy you've fought. So you can go on this safari and like Gao can come across like a guy. Like just like an army guy, and he'll be like, I will commune with this animal, and he goes and he parties with them.
And then he comes back and he's like, I have learned
no, and then
sword
like,
slash.
Yeah, and then his like move is gun. I went on a vision quest with a cool guy, and then he gave me this gun.
Yeah. So you got to have that in the game. That's required. And speaking of unique abilities, you mentioned a stealing ability. Oh my god, that's a no-brainer. That is required. It's a slam dunk. Got to have it because here's the thing. Every stealing ability sucks shit and absolutely blows and makes the character who has it a useless waste of space. So you got to make sure you have that.
The thing that sucks about the ability that is basically saying miss half the time is that if you don't have someone in your party with it, all you can think about is all the stuff you're not getting.
And there's got to be for sure like a monster who's only present in like one specific area, and it's like one of the few areas that like you can't go back to. Like it's a point, like once you exit, it's gone forever. And that enemy has to have like a 1 in 10 chance of when you steal from them successfully, it gives you like an incredible item that's so good and like really defines the play style for that part of the game, such that if you're ever stuck and you're like, man, I don't know what to do, and you go online to look at guides, it's like, by now, this character should have the Genji glove, and I'm like, oh god. Oh no.
a very good item that makes you attack twice. That would suck to miss, Tom. I don't know.
Yes, well, I did.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but because it's a stealable item, like, there's no reason your whole party shouldn't have Genji gloves.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. And here's the thing: no way to know that. It's one of those things that you gotta have. You gotta have in these games, just shit that everyone online is so fucking frustrated with you for not knowing. If you roll up on one of these forums being like, "What's a Genji glove?" They're gonna swat you, dude. Okay. Anyway, while we're talking about unique abilities, how they have to be confusing and suck and vary wildly in quality. That can't just be confined to the unique abilities. It has to also be part of like the common abilities that anyone can learn, because you gotta have instant kill chance spells. You can't avoid these.
Yeah, these are fun, I'm told. People love these.
These are spells that never work. The effect is that your mana goes way down for no reason and nothing happens.
Yeah, and also like a bunch of little annoying enemies that don't hit you ever will just spam this shit, which is so great. Persona had so much of that. All the Shin Megami games have a zone where you have to walk into a bunch of freaks that just have the instant kill spell, and it's kind of weird how when they do it, I don't know, it seems like it hits a lot.
These are the incredible spells. You gotta have these in your game, because when you really look at it from like a high level perspective.
Again, from a high level perspective, if I may, these are anti-spiral because you have instant kill spells. Okay, so these are... What is the use case for these? Let's think about this for a second. Are you going to use a high cost, high chance to miss on random trash? No. Well, you probably use it on a boss. I got bad news.
Oh, they're immune. They're immune, dude.
I got bad news.
Can't do it.
So the reason they're in these games is because someone's a pain pervert.
Yeah, I mean, they're there again to cause you harm, because in a fucking game like this, literally, what is the gameplay? Like, what is the only thing you can do to interface with the world? Well, that is to decide what to use in action doing. And the only way that you can quantify if you're playing good is how much is accomplished with each action. You want there to be a high average for what happens for each action. So what that means is that you gotta include a ton of options that are just going to do literally zero, by which that means that you choosing them has made you the worst player of this game that there could ever be.
You should definitely use Berserk on yourself and die.
Oh, and that's another thing. You mentioned Berserk. There's gotta be a bajillion statuses that are so confusing.
Imp, frog, homesickness,
nausea, dizziness. You gotta have a ton. There has to be so many.
They never work on enemies. This is the thing.
It's much like the instant kill spells. It's like on an average enemy that you're like encountering in a random encounter, how long is that going to take you to beat that battle? Maybe like once or twice through the rotation if everyone does their big attacks.
You can't actually answer that question because you're not looking at the screen, because you can play this with one hand while looking at your phone.
Yeah, for real. But I mean is, what's fucking wrong with your brain that you decide to use a status spell? That doesn't even do damage, dude.
And this is a mark of a good JRPG when they deny you like the dopamine of getting to apply status effects.
Yeah.
On enemies. They should never work. They should be useless on bosses.
They should work a third of the time against normal enemies and never against bosses. That's the baseline.
There, of course, will be like one encounter where it's like, this boss is easy if you poison it. Like, why the fuck would I do that? Like, why would I ineffectually apply something on the off chance that you have a freak coding enemies there? But Final Fantasy VIII, actually don't have like a definitive opinion on, because I don't think I finished it, and it's weird. But I will say the one thing it does is it has summons in it, and one of the summons is Doom Train, which is it's actually the train from Final Fantasy VI that you can suplex or whatever. And it shows up, and it just gives every enemy every status effect.
Oh shit.
And it's not a joke. It's the real deal. And it is one of the most satisfying things, because every RPG has those enemies that's like, oh, they don't like hurt you, but they just like fuck with your stats and they're annoying. You get to just do that.
That is pretty cool. But I don't know.
That's why it's not a good game, though.
Yeah, no, it's
works.
not a good game. You got to have them not work. You got to have them not work, because not only do you have to have spells that just do nothing a majority of the time, and when they do something, it would be just better to do fucking damage to them and kill the enemy, because by the time the fucking status effect pays off, the guy's gonna be dead anyway. Why this is so necessary is because it has to be where like you're gaining spells for your character. Like you get the fire spell, you get the ice spell, and you get like the lightning spell, you get the wind spell, and you're like, dope, I have the damage dealers. And then the next like 40 levels have to be just entirely you getting status spells. Because again, like I said, you don't know how good you have it until it's been taken away. Once you realize what it meant to get spells that were actually important and useful, it makes you savor them all the more when you get like dispel and break and stop as spells. And you're like, shit that will never work. I see.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course, Joe, you mentioned this briefly, but I want to make it explicit. The other side of this coin is enemies apply status effects 100% of the time.
They can't miss. Please miss. Please miss, slimes.
And you get a lot of items. That are like, this item prevents petrification. And you're like, well, why would I equip that when I could equip an item that makes my numbies get bigger? And then, like, 60 hours later, there's like a dungeon where everything petrifies you, and it's like, you should have been looking ahead and used the petrification item. And it's like, how would I know? How would I know? It's not like I'm going to Medusa land where I'm like, maybe I'll get fucking petrified. No, it's just random. You gotta have that.
So I know we're not done with our system here, but I have some evidence that I just realized about how we're on the right track here.
Oh, gimme, dude.
Okay. What is the greatest selling JRPG of all time? The one that makes offices have to shut down because everyone is addicted to playing it when it comes out.
Dragon Quest.
Now, I don't think there's a game series that has a worse ratio of useful skills to just garbage, because those games will make you like grind 8 levels to get something that's like may make beasts flinch. It's so bad. They're awful. And they're the most popular game of all time.
Yeah, it just goes to show you, folks. I think something that Dragon Quest does, and this is the sign of like a real incredible, like the masters of the craft. Anyone can have a bunch of useless skills, which you got to do that. That's not negotiable, as we said. Anyone can just put a bunch of useless skills in. But what Dragon Quest does, and I think what any JRPG needs to do to become truly perfect, is it needs to be like hard-coded into the game. That the first time the player uses any spell, any ability that has the chance to fail, it needs to be hard-coded such that it will fail the first time no matter what. So that the player instantly categorizes that spell in their head as this is the useless move that does nothing and throws it in the trash.
Yeah. We include warp in this list. Like if you try to fast travel, you should fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. And hey, while we're on the topic of what specific spells have to be doing, any sort of cure spell, any spell that it raises HP or brings KO'd characters back to life, well, that spell has to hurt skeletons.
Oh yeah, this is non-negotiable. When I play a game and I can use Cure on undead and it doesn't fuck them up, it just tells me that like the people making the game didn't care. Like they didn't give a shit. They were just punching in and punching out.
Like, we're doing a lot of tongue-in-cheek shit where we're saying things are good when they're actually bad.
I'm not joking about that. I'm actually kind of pissed. You know how you get like upset at the thought that there's a waterfall with nothing behind it?
Yeah. Like, this is real. Like, Cure would make skeletons hurt because they're dead. Like, think. Yeah. Come on.
Revive is their doom. It's obvious.
Yeah, if you make a skeleton alive, then they'll die. Like, just think. Look, 1 + 1 = 2, dude. This is easy mode.
Yeah. And it's also rad when, like, you can just have your healer be like, guess what? Go nuts.
Yeah, it's like, why? Like, that's so fucking good because, like, when you realize you can target enemies with the healing spells, at first you're like, well, that's kind of silly. Why would I ever do that? I guess it's just, they programmed that a spell can attack anyone. And, because you have to make sure that the offense spells attack the enemies. And, I guess you can just choose to heal the enemies. But then when it fucking clicks and you're like, oh my God, it is an offense spell now. Because it's a zombie. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. I will say, I think it's good that you can hurt enemies with Cure that are skeletons and shit. Though it's a slippery slope because once you start targeting like enemies with healing spells, you start doing weird shit where you're like, well, if I can bounce my own reflex off of my guys, and you can see how that turns you into a hideous gaming goblin.
Yeah, you got to do that. That's non-negotiable. And Joe, we've been talking about Cure a lot. Obviously, Cure, these are the spells that heal your party, that regain your HP if you're low on HP. But what in a perfect RPG? What do you do if you're low on mana?
You reload the fucking save.
Yeah, you fucked up. You don't get low on mana, idiot.
Yeah, you think HP is important. It's not. Who gives a shit? People die all the time, but not everybody casts spells.
Yeah, people think that when you lose in an RPG, it's when all your guys die and the screen goes black and says game over. No, you lose when the big damage spell is gray.
Yeah. You also lose when you realize you're going to have to use only physical attacks to get back to town.
Oof.
And also a big part of the experience of going to a new town in a JRPG is just like getting to understand the comfortable zone around the town that you can travel while still getting back to the inn for your MP.
Yeah. And speaking of towns, the town experience, this is something you really have to dial in to make a perfect RPG, because not only do you have to have that, but you have to get the pacing with regard to item acquisition just right. Because what you need to have happen is you go to a town, you go to the item shop, and you are blown away with how good the items are compared to what you have. And so you're going to spend all your money on cool new items and equip all your guys, really make some interesting decisions about who gets what. Now, anyone can just do that. That's easy. What takes a master is getting the pacing just right. Because ideally what should be happening is when you spend all your money and equip your characters in all new items, those items should be used, ideally, about like 0.3 times each before you encounter and get even better items that replace them completely. Which again is part and parcel to the overarching necessity that anything you do, you have to be afraid it's going to be a complete waste of your time. You have to have that. If your items that you're giving the player are consistently like being useful for a long amount of time without being replaced, you can't do that.
Can I give you a sequence of events, and can you tell me if it can be improved for JRPG purposes?
Yeah, give me.
Okay. You go to town, and there's a big sword your main guy wants, and it costs like 10,000 gold. You grind a bunch, and then you get it.
Yeah.
What you're saying is like you should then immediately like find a chest with a better one.
Oh yeah, no, dude, for real. Yes.
No. You're not thinking big enough.
Oh no.
What should happen is after you get the $10,000 new sword, when you leave town, the enemies that you've been grinding on should for some reason just drop that sword.
No, okay, Joe, you opened my eyes. I was right. That wasn't. I thought that was good enough, but it wasn't. But I'm inspired by you. I'm going to do you one better. You're going to get that sword. You're going to leave town, and then when you leave town, a villain, like a mid villain, like the villain's minion shows up and like kidnaps that guy, and then that guy's not in your fucking party anymore. And then the enemies drop that sword. And then when you go to the next dungeon, there's a fucking chest right in the fucking middle of the first room. You open it up, and there's a better sword that no one can equip because it's only for that guy who's missing. That's the ultimate pacing experience.
It's all about like showing the player the outline of the stuff they don't have.
Yes. This is this just thinking about this, it's so fun. I want to play it so bad. But Joe, we've been talking a lot about the mechanics of these games, the actual like getting in the weeds and picking shit off the menus, what the menus do. But that's not all. You got to have your cool story. And I think what really makes a JRPG great, a lot of these JRPGs have like cinematic stories with like cutting edge graphics and cutscenes that are like indistinguishable from cinema, dude. What I think needs to happen for a perfect RPG is for it to have, one of these epic, emotional, tumultuous stories that like span eras and have like the heights and the depths of human emotion. There needs to be in a game where everyone looks like little Lego men who don't move, who have two frames.
I for real, I cannot believe that people have what's a better game, Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger, because like the sprites in 6 look like shit.
They're
and it's the same technology.
The audacity to release Final Fantasy VI with the fucking Lego men looking like that.
Did you know Kefka was a clown?
I do. Okay. Kefka is the clown villain of Final Fantasy VI, who is lauded among the gamers as one of the most iconic villains of all time. He's
Magic Joker.
His sprite reads as fucking noise. It looks like the big 3D red word error that shows up in Bethesda games when you mod them wrong. It's just like, is that supposed to be a guy? Like, huh? Is he wearing clothes? What's their shape?
To me, as a kid, it read as just a guy in a robe, and he's supposed to have a creepy laugh, but it's just like a 16-bit like sound. So like you could see why this characterization doesn't quite hit. And the funny thing is later when he's like an enemy and he has like a real sprite, because like enemies get real sprites.
Mm-hmm.
He looks fucking cool and scary. He's a dang scary clown. Oh no, I hate it.
Yeah, you got it. Okay, it's like, imagine if you were getting sat down to watch like Citizen Kane, like Goodfellas, one of the classics of cinema. People are like, this is the good shit. Oh, wait till you see this. This is art, baby. And someone has done a stop motion of their Lego man, and then like halfway through, the like Citizen Kane Lego man gets replaced with like a Michelangelo sculpture, and you're like, oh my, what?
Yes. Okay.
Has that been available the whole time?
It's why Final Fantasy VI having like the shittiest Lego man of all time is funny, because like Square has had Yoshitaka Omano like on staff to draw amazing shit. He draws amazing characters. All of the characters in 6 have their portraits done, I think, in his style, right?
Yeah, and like they're incredible. He has such a unique style, and he's so good at creating interesting, unique, cool-looking characters.
And it's so funny to go from the menu to a bunch of gray shit.
A bunch of like, imagine like being one of the great artists of your generation, and getting a fucking salary job to draw incredible fantasy heroes so that a bunch of little beat boop men can translate them into little Lego guys, and you look at them and you're like, well, that's not the same. And they're like, shut up, idiot. Draw a Castlevania now.
It's funny because, like, his job is to draw stuff for the video game, and they put it in sometimes.
Yeah, it's incredible. And anyway, Joe, it's not just the look that has to propel the story to the heights. It can't just be the fact that it's little Lego guys who don't move that make the story incredible in this JRPG. Another thing that needs to happen is your guy, your main character, the character that's like you. This has to be the most important person who was ever born. This character needs to meet on their adventure the most unique, the most powerful, the most charismatic people on Earth. And these people that he meets, they just cannot resist becoming his submissive followers. They're like, I'm the coolest badass of all time, but I will give up my life to stand in a line behind you forever. This character's actions reshape the world more significantly than anyone who was ever born. Now, at the same time, this character has never spoken in his life and has zero brain activity, and no one ever told him what a facial expression was.
His favorite subject of conversation is, it is 100 gold pieces for a night. Do you want to stay? Yes, no. He loves to have that talk.
There has to be big speeches where these characters who have like big backstories that are really emotional and affecting, like cry, they break down weeping, and they're like, I was so broken before I met you, but you've inspired me so much. And now I feel like I'm a new person and I have a purpose. I have a purpose and it's with you. It's with you. And your guy is just like, yes, no, yes, stay at inn. Sell sword, sell steel sword, sell bronze sword, sell silver sword. Don't sell mithril sword. I need that. That's the good one.
Yeah, every character's indebted. I'll never forget the first thing you said to me, hero, which was to stare off in the middle distance and keep bumping into that townsperson.
The way that you took us into that cave and had us walk back and forth for 2 hours so that we would get more strong was so inspiring, and everyone thought to do that. I always just walk straight through caves. It's this hero's brain that you have that really puts you over the edge.
Can I give an honest critique about Final Fantasy VII? Up until that point, a lot of the games I play were exactly what we described, where you had like a blank slate.
Mm-hmm.
And Final Fantasy VII I played, all of a sudden, like, the main character has a personality, and all of a sudden, he's like, 2 guys? Man, fuck. It was too much.
No. You gotta go Dragon Quest route where you are controlling basically an animated corpse. He is incapable of expressing anything whatsoever. Just a true dumbass. It's gotta feel not like this character is simply choosing not to speak. It's got to feel not like the character is speaking, but we just don't see it. It's just implied. It's got to come across as this character is incapable of speech because their brain got hurt.
They have a bump on their head now, and they can't talk right.
Fuck, dude. Yes.
All these games needs permanent stat up items. Ideally, they should be seeds. Seeds are good.
When I eat a seed, I'm expecting to become better forever.
Yeah, agility seeds.
Yeah.
Attack seeds. Here's the thing, though. We've established that a good game means you never know who's in your party because people are always going on spring break. You got to just give all your seeds to the main character because he's the only guy you know who's not going to leave you.
You say that, and that's true. But I'm playing Final Fantasy VI. What a spoiler. I've been talking about it all fucking episode. And, like, the undisputed, like, main character of that game is Terra. She has spent pretty much 2/3 of my runtime playing the game, like, in bed. Like, too depressed to move. I gotta say that kind of shit where it's just like, hey, fucking minute one, I, the game, am making this deal with you, player, that Terra is the main character. She is the character who is the main person in this story that we're going to be following the whole time. And I'm like, got it. Deal. I agree. Let's go, game. And then the game's like, fuck you, bitch. We're taking her away. Ha ha. That is the real audacity that I love to see.
6 does truly feel like, and I guess I mean this in a good way, but it doesn't sound good, that like none of the characters matter.
Yes.
Honestly, there's a lot of things you can do in the game to just like lose them. So I guess that's true.
Yeah. I mean, if the characters mattered, well, then they couldn't take them away as easily. You wouldn't feel that fear constantly. But when they're just sort of like doing nothing, it's like, well, I guess the plot wouldn't really change at all if Locke left. I guess he could leave at any time then, huh? Oh, no!
I do want to... I think there's something about, like, the game setting up the whitewater rafting part and being like, uh-oh, do you think the party's gonna get split up? That's, like, really funny.
God, yep, it's stupid. And another thing about Final Fantasy VI, and this is something that it does well, I think all these games should do it, is you should have a world where it's like, it's not just your standard fantasy world. Like, you should shake it up and really make it exciting. Like, Final Fantasy VI has this world where, you know, magic...
There's Moogles.
Well, yes, but there are Moogles. They're very cute. But it's a world where, like, magic is, like, something from the long past, and it's just now coming back. And, like, the world at large is mostly about, like, steampunk technology and, like, mecha suits and shit. Like, that's what's important. Like, that's what military power is. There are, like, big castles that can, like, burrow underground and move using huge engines. Like, that's what's cool. So you have opened up this playground in the fiction where, like, anything can happen. There's all these interesting possibilities for unique weapons that only exist because of the world you set up. And you got to do that. But then you also have to seal the deal by making all of your main characters just use normal swords.
Normal swords.
Normal swords.
Like a katana if you're lucky.
Normal swords. All the swords have to have 5 words maximum describing them, but don't let that blunt your ambition for making weapons with strange, unique abilities, unlike any other weapon in the game, that have upsides and downsides that need to be played around. Just have the description be very vague and not explain it at all.
Dragon Quest, the later ones let you like put skill points into what weapons you want to develop, and like it really looks at you and says, "Hey, do you think investing everything in boomerang will be as good as sword, the first option?"
That's a Joe. You're just describing the peak
of
game
game
design. Yes,
such a good game, a wonderful game.
Joe, we're nearly wrapping up. We've hit a lot of points about necessary things to make the perfect RPG. It's been very funny and good. But while we're on the topic of these fucking items, I just want to talk about something that happened to me recently in Final Fantasy VI. I got this item called the Assassin Blade. And I thought this was pretty cool because it had a high numbies. The numbies for attack were high. And here is its item description. The whole thing. Blade that may randomly dispatch an enemy in one hit. So what I thought this was this is just a good sword, but when like every once in a while it just does a one-hit kill and kills the enemy outright. And I'm like, that's dope. I love that. I'm gonna equip that item. Here's the thing, Joe. That description's wrong. What it's actually doing is every once in a while, when you choose the attack action while you have the Assassin's Blade equipped, instead of hitting with a physical attack, it will cast the death spell on the enemy with a guaranteed success, which will, in effect, instant kill the enemy.
That's so many extra steps.
Yeah, it's so confusing. There's so many extra steps, and here's the thing that makes it so incredible. Just the pinnacle of game design, an experience no other game could give you. You get the Assassin's Blade right before a dungeon where every enemy is undead. So every time it triggers and casts the death spell on an undead enemy, it revives them to full health.
I feel like they wanted to show you that interaction was coded into the game, and the way they led you to interact and experience that is to give you a bad tooltip.
Yeah. Yeah, and Joe, I mean, part of really high-level game design is when one thing feeds into another, and this is just another example of when you give the player something new, it has to fuck up and be useless the first time so that you hate it and never use it again. Because you know what I did? I fucking unequipped the Assassin's Blade and sold it at the next town.
Right, because you didn't make the connection about the undead. You were just like, this randomly just really jazzes up my foe.
No, I made the connection. I was just like, yeah, but I hate it now. It's poisoned to me now.
Obviously, we need to end on the most important part of a JRPG. These are why they even get made, and it's a job system. You need a job system, and a job system should be able to permanently ruin a character.
Yeah, it should be. There should be builds that you could, in good faith, pick and think is a good decision, that not only aren't optimal, but make the character actually useless. Like, they fuck their stats up so bad that it can never be good again. And, yeah, you gotta have that fear. Again, it all goes back to the game has to hate you and always be threatening you.
Yeah, a good job system, obviously you swap out your stats and stuff, but the big brain move is to have the character's base stat growth be affected based on what job they are, so you can have that realization that, like, oh, I leveled this person up, but because I leveled them up in this job for this non-compatible role, a lot of those levels may have been wasted.
Yeah, this guy is clearly the physical attacker, and I didn't know that this job actually was leveling up his magic. But so he's gotten a ton of magic level up, but here's the thing, his magic originally was so low that even with all these levels in magic, it's like lower than the base magic of every other character, so he's like not even good at magic, even though he's gotten all those magic levels. And also now, because he's not been leveling up his strength, like he's not even that strong particularly. Oh no, put him in the trash.
And then you check your save file and you're like, well, how far am I in it? Okay, 80 hours, it's not worth it to redo him.
And also Joe, some games, the job system, when you get a job, not only does it like apply, you know, all the fucking stats and whatnot and all the abilities for that job, a real good game is going to change what your character looks like because they're going to dress up in the uniform of the job.
Yeah, and of course, the worse the job looks, the stronger it is. Like, if you hate looking at it, you know it's going to be in your party.
Yeah, if there's, like, a badass, cool-looking, like, samurai class or, like, a ninja class, oh, my God, if there's a ninja job where, like, a guy looks really badass, he wears, like, a cool, dark ninja hood with, like, shuriken between his knuckles. Shit. Yeah, no, that guy has, like, 0 HP, he doesn't want to hit. His evade is really high, but evade is bugged, so it doesn't actually do anything, so he's just useless.
Yeah, and his stat growth is just shitty compared to the strongest costume, which is a guy wearing a strap-on his head. Just his attack speed is insane.
And also, the strap-on his head, it causes the game to slow down and chug because there's realistic dildo bobbing physics every time he takes a step. It's massively graphically intensive, takes up all the CPU.
Yeah, and that's the attention to detail that makes games good.
So, folks, just to sum up, we've talked a lot about specific things that make the ultimate JRPG. But if I'm just going to take a bird's eye view, here are the hits. 1, there just has to be a constant feeling of fear every single second that you're not doing enough, that you're doing something wrong, and that you're missing the fun part.
Yeah, it should give you attachment issues, for real.
Yeah, you have to always feel like all the things you love and are having fun with can be taken away from you by a cruel, capricious master at any time.
And they will, because the thing I love is the sword I just bought.
Exactly. The game has to constantly be tempting you with ways to spend your precious few actions that will end up having absolutely no effect, again, causing you to play the game as badly as possible. Because when all you do is pick options from a menu, if you pick an option that does nothing, like, what could you have done worse? Nothing. So you got to be able to do that constantly. You got to constantly be fucking falling ass backwards into doing that because the game doesn't let you avoid it.
Yeah. I mean, another way to look at it is what is the most valuable resource in these games? And it's turns. So obviously, a good game would give you lots of opportunities to just fucking chunk it.
The game has to be based on esoteric math that you never understand and also isn't working.
You should be presented with just a cornucopia of visual feats and sounds and places, and you should spend it controlling sword guy.
Yep. And also looking mostly not at the interesting graphics, but instead a little box full of words with an arrow that you go boop, 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 boop.
Like, you're going to spend 100 hours on this shit, and 80% of it, your eyes will just hover a few lines above the word run. So, yeah. I feel like, Joe, we chunked it famously the first time we tried to perfect games criticism, but now that we've tried to make the perfect JRPG, I'm reflecting on what we've said. And buddy, we chunked it 2 times in a row. We're fucked. Yeah. The issue here is we're encouraging these in any way. Like,
yeah, these games suck shit. I hate when all these things happen.
I just wish I'd wanted to do drugs instead.
Yeah, we got Stockholm syndrome. Like, we should have just learned how to party.
Yes. You know what's fucked too is the reason I learned to read fast is because my mom got sick of reading shit to me that was on the Nintendo.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the JRPG was the original sin because it gave me extra words.
The JRPG was the hand that bent the fucking branch of the tree of knowledge in Eden down closer to you, cursing you faster.
Yes, and it also it sucks because teachers are like, "Wow, this kid is smart," and it's like, "No, he's not. He just knows what a scimitar is."
Oh, folks, that's all the time we have for Anime Sickos this week. This is a fun one. Thank you for listening. I've been Tom, an Anime Sicko.
I'm Joe, an Anime Sicko.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Anime Sickos. I've been Tom, a sicko. You can follow me on Twitter at TomHarrison19. Joe is also a sicko. You can follow him on Twitter at ShariaUncle. You can follow Anime Sickos on Twitter at Anime Sickos or email us at animesickos@gmail.com. Please leave us a review or something. I don't know. Tell a friend. Anyway, until next time, bye.